Hi, my name's Eric. I'll be reading you selections from the e-edition of today's Cape Cod Times. Today's date is Monday, February 10th of 2025. We'll start with the weather, as we always do. Across the Cape and Islands today, expect milder conditions with plenty of sunshine. High of 34 in the afternoon, but down into the below teens tonight with 11 degrees, the expected low. Very cold tonight. Partly cloudy and clear. Tuesday, tomorrow, rather cloudy and cold. High of 31 in the day, 26 in the overnight. On Wednesday, snow is expected early in the morning and a mostly cloudy day. High of 34, low of 29. Thursday looks to have more of the same. Breezy with wet snow and then partly sunny. But a little warmer day, high of 43, a low of 24 in the overnight. On Friday gets chilly again, high of 31 and a low of 16 in the overnight, mostly sunny and colder. The sun will rise at 6:43 a.m. today. It'll set at 5:08 p.m. We'll have 10 hours, 25 minutes of daylight. The moon will rise at 3:04 p.m. and set at 5:56 a.m. Now, heading to the front of the paper, where the news and the lottery results are kept, and we read these lottery results because somebody asked for them. If there's something you would like read to people who are blind or print disabled, you can email us at info@audiblelocalledger.org or call us at 508-539-2030, and we'll consider reading it. And if you miss any of the information we share in our readings, you can always go to audiblelocalledger.org and click on the Listen tab. That way you can hear anything that you may have missed in the past week. We keep a week's worth of our newspaper readings up there. And we also keep a wide variety of periodicals and literature readings up there in perpetuity for your listening enjoyment. Don't forget, grocery guides are kept up there as well for what's on sale at the supermarket. All free for people who are blind or print disabled at audiblelocalledger.org. For the latest results in the lottery, we go to masslottery.com. Cape Cod Times goes to press too early to give you those results, and if you ask for them, you deserve them. So for the numbers game of Sunday, February 9th, in the midday drawing, the results were 6701. Again, yesterday's midday drawing for the numbers game, 6701. In the evening drawing last night of the numbers game, 4785. Again, last night's evening drawing of the numbers game, 4785. Mass cash results for Sunday, February 9th, last night, 1, 13, 20, 26, and 28. And Lucky for Life rounds out our lottery results for Sunday, February 9th with 8, 13, 22, 28, 39, with 12, the bonus number. Good luck to all who play. Remember us if you win. From the front page of today's Cape Cod Times, Pocasset Mental Health Center to close by Rachel Devaney. During an Assembly of Delegates meeting on Wednesday, Diane Lawson stood within the Mary Pat Flynn Conference Center in Barnstable Village and spoke about her son, Blue Lawson, who's been diagnosed with schizophrenia. Whenever Blue needs support, she said she can call on Pocasset Mental Health Center staff. When he gets into Pocasset, everybody knows him. Everyone's familiar with his issues, said Diane Lawson. I've lost a lot in life because of my son's illness, but Pocasset has been superb in treating my son. In January, Governor Maura Healey filed her fiscal 2026 budget, which revealed budgetary cuts to the Department of Mental Health. That includes the closure of the center, which is located at 830 County Road, along with a state-run pediatric rehabilitation hospital in Canton. The state also intends to cut the mental health case manager workforce. Cape Cod has acute mental health needs. Barnstable County Sheriff Donna Buckley also spoke at the meeting and said the closures and budget restrictions will put more people in emergency rooms, in police cruisers, or in jails. These proposals will not save money, but they will exact a human toll, said Buckley. Senator Dylan Fernandez told the Times on Thursday that the center is funded through the fiscal year, and there won't be an immediate closure. In the meantime, Fernandez says he's working on a budget amendment that could keep the center open. The concern is that there's only 20 inpatient beds at Cape Cod Hospital, said Fernandez. If the state pulls out, they're leaving an entire region with less than 24 inpatient mental health beds in a region that has acute mental health needs. How will the center closures and staff cuts impact local families? Rachel Currington, a Department of Mental Health adult case management supervisor, was emotional during the assembly meeting. As her voice shook, she said cuts to case management staff will increase a need for police services and will stress local hospital emergency departments. Medical and psychiatric patient stay will also increase, she said. Case managers, said Currington, work directly with first responders, social workers, and hospital staff to ensure that clients can remain as independent as possible in the community. We pick them up. We help them take their meds. We take them shopping. We work on symptom management. Sometimes they don't have family, and we're the only person in their life that they get to see, said Currington. Buckley, who wrote a letter to Healy in opposition of the center's closing on January 31st, said the mental health crisis on the Cape has continued to escalate before the latest proposals even came forward. The region, she said, has never recovered after decisions were made to close inpatient facilities on the Cape 40 years ago. What we're seeing now is the absolute bottom of the consequences of that, she said. The increased demands of law enforcement and emergency departments aren't sustainable. Buckley calls for additional mental health services and inpatient services. To just summarily suggest that we can close Pocasset or eliminate half of the people who provide services across the state without a plan or an opportunity for input is concerning, she said. When Fernandez heard about the possible closure, he launched a petition on January 30th, which has garnered 1,257 signatures to date, 1,257 signatures. The petition calls for the state to reverse course regarding the decision to close the center and to instead expand access to mental health services across the region. The Cape and Islands are very geographically isolated, said Fernandez. Potentially closing the facility is an immoral move. Fernandez will also host a community meeting, along with State Representative David Vieira, to discuss what's at stake with a possible closure from 6 to 7:15 p.m. on February 11th, tomorrow, at the Pocasset Village Association Community Room. During the Assembly meeting, Chair of the Board of Regional Commissioners, Sheila Lyons, said commissioners have drafted a resolution against the cuts. The group, she said, will be joining forces with the Assembly of Delegates to write a letter to Healy's office in opposition of the center's potential closing. We want to move forward, be informed, and keep this conversation going as we continue to advocate for people on Cape Cod, said Lyons. In a letter to Healy, the Bourne Select Board wrote in opposition of the closure and said the center is an integral part of local services needed to meet the needs of Bourne residents. If Pocasset is closed, access to care becomes even more difficult, resulting in more mental health challenges being left untreated and more people entering a downward spiral into the criminal justice system, read the letter. During the Assembly meeting, Kim Lemon, Director of Family Programs for the National Alliance on Mental Illness Cape Cod and the Islands, said she's been taking support calls from families for 10 years. The door surrounding access to mental health services is closing faster and faster every year, she said. It's getting more and more frustrating telling families that there's nothing, she said. I was devastated when I heard the news of this potential closure. We don't need less services, we need more. Our next headline, as we keep it local here, Transfer Station Worker Praised for Emergency Response by Desiree Nickfargen. Barnstable transfer station worker Lawrence Reaney was recognized by the Barnstable Town Council after he helped a woman who was struck by a car at the town transfer station. Reaney applied a tourniquet to the woman's leg. The woman, Dawn Capra of Marston's Mills, is in stable condition, according to her family. On behalf of the Barnstable Town Council and the residents of the town, I present you with this certificate of appreciation as a thanks for going above and beyond the call of duty in responding to this traumatic event, said Daniel Santos, Director of Barnstable Public Works. The certificate was given to Reaney before the public comment portion of the February 6th council meeting. Mr. Rini utilized training he had only recently received in the treatment of severe bleeding, said Santos, and after applying first aid, Mr. Rini remained with the woman, keeping her calm until emergency response personnel arrived. On the morning of January 29th, Rini was working at the transfer station when Marston's Mills resident Dawn Capra was removing trash from the trunk of her car. She was hit by a car that was queued behind her. The incident broke both of Capra's femurs and led to the amputation of her right leg above the knee. They explained tourniquet for legs, any mid-body stuff. You would pack the wound with something to clot the bleeding, and then pressure was the last one, said Rini when describing his training. So that's how I kind of applied it to the extremity. I put it on there and tried not to freak out too much. Rini's had 12 family members supporting him, including his wife Hannah and their 2 sons Lawrence and Talon, his mother Lori, grandmother Lorraine Visco, and brother John. This is the boy who used to throw up when he saw blood, said Rini's mother. I'm so proud. Most of Rini's family said they were shocked to hear about his heroic actions, but his uncle, Ian MacLeod, said it didn't surprise him. You know, he was squeamish about some things, but when it came to doing the right thing, he didn't have a problem. He knew how to do that, said MacLeod. MacLeod said that during Rini's teenage years, they spent a great deal of time together since he and his wife lived closest to Rini's high school in Boston. When asked how he was processing what happened on January 29th, Rini said, "Well, that's a whole other story for another time." Barnstable police are investigating the incident. Well, if you've been waiting for an opportunity to adopt a dog, now's your chance. From the Cape and Islands section, the headline reads, "Shelter Dogs Arrive on Cape from West Coast Fires" by Marilee Cassidy in Brewster. Olivia and Cider are hoping for new homes after making a journey from Los Angeles. The dogs arrived at the Animal Rescue League of Boston's Brewster Center from Los Angeles shelters, and they're now available for adoption, according to the Rescue Center on February 6th. They were among 9 dogs from Los Angeles shelters taken in by the Animal Rescue League of Boston. Olivia is an American Bulldog mix, about 3 years old. Cider is a neutered male Staffordshire Bull Terrier mix, just over 1 year old. Both are pit bulls, essentially. The dogs were shelter dogs awaiting to be adopted before the wildfires in Los Angeles broke out in early January. They were transported to Massachusetts to help create kennel space in the Los Angeles shelters for animals that have been displaced or injured due to the fires, Animal Rescue League's media relations manager Michael DeFina said. After the fires, DeFina said the Los Angeles rescuers started to reach out to their network of national animal welfare groups to see if the Animal Rescue League could help. The dogs were transported by plane and arrived in late January in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, where the Animal Rescue League of Boston officials picked them up and drove them to the Dedham Animal Care and Adoption Center. All 9 dogs are available for adoption at the Brewster and Dedham centers as of February 6th, after being quarantined for the required 48 hours and receiving medical and behavioral evaluations. And there are photos of both dogs, and they are both bully breed dogs, good-looking dogs. Again, bully breed, the pit bull breed. Snow Day is an opportunity for great shots by Steve Heslip. Snow Day, for the photojournalists, there is no such thing. When Mother Nature brings her winter worst, it is all hands on deck for the photo department, no matter the day. Occasionally, when the snowflakes align into just a couple of inches and arrive on a Monday, my day off, I get a chance to play in the snow. An overnight snow gives a fresh view to the brown and dismal winter landscape. It also brings quiet. The thicker the snow, the quieter it gets, a widespread muffler absorbing the daily hubbub. When covering a snowstorm for the paper, there are any number of angles to cover, but the outline runs something like this. Snow removal is usually first up, and then road condition photos, including any weather-related accidents, then on to more feature-styled shots of sledding, skiers, and iconic Cape landmarks that are covered in white. When a blizzard roars through, photo coverage becomes an adventure. Making images in pelting wind-driven snow tests the limits of camera gear and personal endurance. Heading out on foot is sometimes the only way to go. Thankfully, no Arctic snow adventures so far this year. The groundhog, seeing his shadow, has locked us into another 6 weeks of winter. But any Cape Codder is a much better winter predictor. Look up the April Fool's Day storm of 1997 for further proof. Waking up on a recent Monday to a couple of inches of snow, it was tempting to grab the snow shovel first, but the wet coating sent me out the door with a camera instead. It was above freezing, with no time to waste. A walk about the neighborhood yielded a half-dozen photos well ahead of the rising sun, which by midday had melted away just about everything. The snow shovel got just enough of a workout to remove the cobwebs. We're now both on standby. Much more winter to arrive in the next 2 months. Sorry, Punxsutawney Phil, I don't believe you. In regional news from the State House News Service, the headline reads, House okays reforms to family shelter systems. The House on Thursday approved $425 million to replenish the cash-starved family shelter system, while passing changes to tighten eligibility and shrink the system's size. Lawmakers passed the bill 126 to 26, nearly along party lines, after Democrats shot down Republican-led efforts that would have broadened criminal background checks for shelter residents, allowed ICE into shelters to remove undocumented immigrants, and slashed the appropriation amount while reforms are implemented. The House did incorporate one of the Republicans' 15 proposals, a Minority Leader Brad Jones' amendment that imposes a competitive bidding process on any expenditure for the Emergency Assistance, the EA, program. Similarly, last March, the one successful Republican amendment to another shelter mini-budget was a Jones measure requiring the shelter system's food provisions be subject to competitive bidding. Representatives on Thursday also adopted Democratic Representative Marjorie Decker's amendment maintaining presumptive eligibility for children under 6 years old in shelter. Decker said Thursday's debate was one of the most challenging days she's experienced during her 12 years as a representative, and I know that's true for so many of my colleagues. She added that she believes the House has tried to maintain the difficult balance of housing homeless families while handling the realities of the strains the crisis has put on their communities. People documented as having a disability would be granted hardship waivers to extend their shelter stays past 6 months under a Representative Rob Casalvo amendment, which he said is aimed particularly at individuals who are already in a program to find supportive transitional housing. The Consalvo amendment was adopted unanimously, as was Representative Michael Finn's measure to add shelter exit data to the biweekly reports that are sent to the legislature by the Healey administration. The $425 million that the bill injects into the emergency assistance system is supposed to keep it afloat through the end of June, while also imposing a new 6-month limit on how long families can stay in shelter. The bill also would impose a rigid cap on the number of families the state will serve in 2026, no more than 4,000 at a time, a one-third cut from the caseload as of January 30th, which is of 6,012 families. The House landed on a 4,000 family shelter cap based on discussions with the Healey administration, Speaker Ron Mariano told reporters after a Democratic caucus meeting on Thursday. Traditionally, so it is above what the historical context would allow, Ways and Means Chair Aaron Miklowitz added, but certainly not nearly the level that it was, over the last year and a half when it was at 7,500, actually at maximum 7,700. The new capacity wouldn't take effect until the end of the 2025 year. There are also measures to remove the availability of 2 90-day extensions for families to stay in shelter for certain situations. EOHLC would be allowed, under the House bill, to deem families that have income exceeding 200% of the federal poverty level for 3 consecutive months to be no longer eligible for shelter benefits. Homelessness shelter providers and other critics say overhauling eligibility criteria to access the EA family shelter system is undermining the state's right to shelter law. Kelly Turley of the Massachusetts Coalition for the Homeless told the news service after Thursday's session that her group was disappointed that the bill includes harsher length of stay limits, an arbitrary cap of 4,000 families in the program, and an unraveling of critical placement pending verification protections for many families. A small group of protesters who opposed the bill's reforms gathered outside the chamber holding banners and chanting as the session got underway around 11 a.m. Mariano asked after the Democratic caucus whether the shelter changes are meant to block migrant families, told reporters, "I don't know as so much as it's meant to keep migrant families out of the system. It's meant to control the expense side that we're faced with in a budget that's under stress from a lot of different ways," Mariano said. "You know, we lost our federal partner. We see what's going on in Washington, and we see the changes that are being offered up. We're very concerned about going forward and making this a manageable, successful program." House Minority Leader Brad Jones filed an amendment to implement universal background checks for applicants into the EA system. He cited a recent incident in Revere where a Dominican native who had not been admitted into the system but was living in an EA-run shelter with his girlfriend was arrested, allegedly in possession of 5 kilograms of fentanyl and a loaded AR-style rifle. After that incident burst into headlines last month, the Healey administration revealed that it had not been running comprehensive background checks on all applicants as it had previously claimed. The governor's and House's version of the bill would require mass criminal offender record information, that's known as CORI, checks, before families are placed in shelters. But Republicans said that the CORI checks weren't enough. They don't capture crimes committed in other countries or states, Jones said. If we're going to have a program that's taking in thousands and thousands and thousands of folks from outside the state of Massachusetts, a simple CORI check isn't going to be enough. We need a more universal background check to see these individuals and their families that are coming with them, if they have any violent history, said Representative Paul Frost of Auburn. Representative Michael Day of Stoneham responded that the amendment was an attempted Republican backdoor to strangle our emergency shelter law altogether and kill it from within. Day said the background checks that the amendment would require would also check the education backgrounds of applicants, credit scores, and financial information. Now we want to find out the creditworthiness of a young family applying for emergency shelter. That's going to make the shelters and residents safer. Finding out what Kohl's thinks about their ability to get a credit card, Day said sarcastically. The House avoided going on the record about Republican-backed proposals to respond to the Supreme Judicial Court's Lund decision, a 2017 ruling that blocked Massachusetts courts and law enforcement from honoring federal immigration detainers. One such amendment, filed by Jones, would have allowed them to honor Immigration and Custom Enforcement detainers, ICE, if the person in question poses a threat to public safety. At the urging of Democrats, those measures were determined to be beyond the scope, a parliamentary ruling that foreclosed the possibility of even taking up the amendments for recorded votes. A number of other Republican amendments were also ruled beyond the scope of the bill, including one filed by Representative Mark Lombardo, Amendment 14, that would have required the Executive Office of Housing and Livable Communities to comply with ICE to detain undocumented immigrants in shelters. After it was laid aside without a vote, Lombardo questioned the chair's decision and took the floor. "I've seen a lot in 14 years in this building. This is new. This is new. We're ruling out of the scope an amendment which speaks to how the shelters would operate," Lombardo said. He went on to add, "It's not compassionate to allow residents of the Commonwealth to become rape victims, to become murder victims, become victims of assault, drug trafficking, dying of fentanyl overdoses." The House voted 128 to 24 to uphold the chair's ruling the amendment was beyond the scope of the bill. The most meaningful reform would be to require state resources to cooperate with federal immigration authorities, but Beacon Hill politicians refused to act for purely political reasons, Paul Craney, executive director of the Massachusetts Fiscal Alliance, said after the vote. He added, "Instead of fixing the problem, taxpayers are stuck in an endless cycle of waste." The Republican caucus voted against the bill on the final 126-26 roll call at 5 p.m., as did Democrat Representatives Colleen Gary and David Robertson. These were the first roll calls of the new General Court. 7 lawmakers did not vote. Representatives Natalie Blaze, Richard Haggerty, Mary Keefe, Kathleen Lenatra, John Lawn, Nicholas Boldiga, and Susanna Whips. Allison Kuznets and Colin A. Young contributed to this State House reporting. And as we effort to keep it local, we'll move to school sports. We've read all the local stories, and there are no obituaries listed in today's Cape Cod Times. In the high school roundup, Nauset shuts out Malden Catholic in boys hockey by Adam Kirkchin. In Mass high school hockey, a win over a Catholic conference team is always significant. That's what the Nauset boys accomplished Saturday, the 4-0 victory over Malden Catholic. The Warriors, who were 15-0 and 1 tie, stayed unbeaten and earned their 7th shutout of the season. Logan Poulin had a hat trick for the Warriors, and Jake Eldridge also scored a goal. In other high school sports action in boys hockey, it was Sandwich 4, Middleborough 2, Falmouth 3, Martha's Vineyard 2, St. John Paul II 4, Bishop Stang 0, Barnstable 11, Nantucket 1, Upper Cape 6, Quincy 3, Greater New Bedford 2, Bourne 1. In girls hockey, it was Sandwich BMC 2, Martha's Vineyard 0, Auburn 1, Nauset Monomoy 0, Dennis Yarmouth, Cape Cod Academy, St. John Paul II 8, Boston Latin Academy 0, Falmouth 9, Barnstable 2. In boys basketball, Ayr Shirley 77, Nantucket 72. In girls basketball, it was Bishop Stang 39, Martha's Vineyard 26. In girls indoor track, the MSTCA Last Chance Qualifier, Barnstable competed at the Reggie Lewis Center. Sherry Wright had a personal best in the 55-meter finals with a time of 7.558 seconds and a third-place finish. She narrowly missed second by 5 thousandths of a second. Emma Steenstra ran a personal best in the 600-meter in 1:47.03, placing 13th. Kira Clifford ran a season best in the 1,000-meter in 3:30.16, placing 30th. Eleanor Bullock also ran a season best in the mile, placing 32nd in 6 minutes, 3 seconds, and 3.66 seconds. The girls 4x200-meter team of Wright, Aisling, Mograss, Sophia Morin, and Sophie Davis placed 20th in 2 minutes 86.86 seconds. The 4x400 team of Steenstra, Clifford, McKenna Dennis, and Holly Rattel placed 12th in 4:41.12. In boys indoor track, in the MSTCA Last Chance Qualifier, the Barnstable boys also competed at the Reggie Lewis Center. Ryan Wolf had the highest place for the boys squad, with a personal best in the 2-mile in 10:55.31, placing 8th. Kevin DeFoidis ran a personal best in the 1,000-meter in 2 minutes, 53.82 seconds. That was good for 20th place. In the field events, Jaden DeLamba led the way with a throw of 38 feet, 7 inches in the shot put, placing 16th. And we will close this Monday, February 10th, half-hour reading of the Cape Cod Times with a little bit of advice from Ask Carolyn. How to talk about a second child when the wife is leaning no. My wife and I have a very good relationship centered on communication. We talk a lot. We both want to talk about whether we have a second child, but can't seem to figure out where to start. I lean toward yes, she toward no. Any advice? Stuck. Dear Stuck, ask her why she leans no and listen without rebutting her reasons, no matter how badly you want to make your case against them. That could end it right there. You presumably wouldn't want to have been the child of a parent who had to be cajoled into it. Plus, some wavering parents have their doubts erased by their newborns, but not all. Plus, assuming you are a hetero couple and not two women, she's the one whose body is on the line, and her life in a small, but not zero, way. If there are legitimately rebuttable points, I worry we can't afford this, then those are fair game. But go back to them after a day or 3 in a follow-up conversation. It's important to give these things air because we mentally work on problems in our minds in the background. Presumably, if you approach the topic this way, she'll then ask you why you're leaning yes. But if she doesn't, then that too is important information. And with that, we've come to the end of our reading of the Cape Cod Times for today, Monday, February 10th of 2025. This is your reader, Eric, saying be well, be safe, look after each other. Remember our veterans, especially those we've lost recently. Bye for now.